Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. I am Dan Scott. Good to have you with us as we prepare you for Saturday's matchup at Chattanooga, with the winner of this game claiming the auto bid for the Southern Conference into the FCS Playoffs. The Mocs have played all but one of their Southern Conference games in a quirk of scheduling. They have Furman this week, a bye week, and then close out their regular season at Alabama, while the Paladins, of course, have 3 conference games remaining, counting Chattanooga this week, returning home next week for the regular season finale against VMI, home finale, and then close out the regular season in 2 weeks at Wofford. So even though the auto bid will be taken care of this week, from a Chattanooga standpoint, if they were to lose the game, they could still claim a share of the championship if Furman stumbled in one of its final 2 games. So a little bit of intrigue, but basically the bottom line is here, the team that wins this gets the auto bid. And from a Chattanooga standpoint, when you start looking at their schedule and their results, they're ranked 13th and 14th in the 2 major polls, but both of their losses have come against FCS opponents, North Alabama way back in the opening week of the season, and to Western Carolina. Does a 3 FCS loss team from the Southern Conference get into the playoffs? Now, if you're talking about the CAA or the Missouri Valley Conference, we have our thoughts about the bias towards conferences like that. Maybe out west, a 3-loss team gets in. A 3 FCS loss Southern Conference team may have a little bit more of a challenge getting in based on recent history. So that's kind of what Chattanooga is facing for the Paladins, number 2 in both polls, and still shooting for that finish and a bye in the first week and a chance to play a string of playoff games at home if it works out that way. A tremendous amount on the line. And this game completes that gauntlet we've been talking about for about a month now of Furman's 3 games in a stretch of 4, 3 road games in a stretch of 4 that was going to define the season. Well, they took care of business at Samford 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, took care of business at Western Carolina, came back home on homecoming last week, beat ETSU 16-8, and now you've got the final game of that stretch at Chattanooga at Finley Stadium on Saturday. It should be a good one. The Mocs come in, as mentioned, ranked 13th and 14th in the 2 polls. They're 7-2 overall, 6-1 in the SoCon, and the biggest difference for them has been the UCLA transfer quarterback Chase Artapeus. And you start looking at his numbers, he has landed in the top 20 in the FCS in just a slew of categories, top 5, top 10 in several of them. For instance, he is 4th in the FCS in total passing yardage with 2,383, 5th in the FCS with yards per pass attempt at 9.17, 8th in passing touchdowns at 18, 7th in yards per completion at 14.27, 9th in pass efficiency at 158.7, 14th in passing yards per game at 264.8, and 12th in total offense at 280.2. So it's pretty clear the difference in their offense has been the UCLA transfer in Chase Artapeus. And when they throw the football, they make no secret about who they're going to throw it to. They have 3 wide receivers that have between 37 and 48 catches. The next closest receiver as far as total number of catches is Camden Overton with 11. But Jamoy Mays leads them with 48 catches, 3 touchdowns. Sam Phillips, 47 catches and 4 touchdowns. And Javen Watley, 37 catches, but 7 touchdowns and 19 yards per reception. He is the one that had the monster game for Chattanooga in their loss to Western Carolina, 52-50. But he put up multiple touchdowns and had 114 yards in kick returns and over 200 yards receiving. He was almost impossible for the Catamounts to stop that day in that wild 2-point win that they had. From a running standpoint, you've seen the news, I'm sure, that their fine running back, maybe the best back in Chattanooga history, or at least right up there, Ilam Ford, tore his ACL a couple of weeks ago. He's out. But remember, he didn't play against Furman last year. Gino Appleberry, who starts on Saturday, started against the Paladins last week. He's 8th in the conference in rushing with 479 yards, averaging 4.4 yards a carry, and has 6 touchdowns on the ground. They want to be as balanced as possible, so the task for the Paladins this week is going to be what they tried to do against Samford and what they tried to do against Western, and did a pretty good job, and that's make them one-dimensional. Take the running game away from them, force them to throw the football, and then do what they've done, especially in getting after the quarterback. I talked with Dwayne Vaughn this week, and the game plan here is very similar to what they were facing with Western Carolina from the standpoint that Cole Gonzalez had not been hit very much all season long. In fact, he hadn't been sacked since their first game of the season. Well, the Paladins sacked him 3 times and made him move his feet and throw the ball from uncomfortable positions all game long. Chased him, hit him, did some other things. Kind of the same thing they're going to have to do against Artepeus. He's not been hit as much, so you want to get after him, and you go back to the Samford game. Something has clicked with this pass rush with that front 4, and over the last 3 weeks, it has been spectacular. They're going to have another week of that. From an offensive standpoint, expect a little more of an open concept from Justin Roper and company this week. ETSU, to quote Clay Hendricks, Billy Taylor, their defensive coordinator, wants to make you play in a phone booth, bringing 8 and 9 guys into the box and constantly bringing pressure and forcing offenses to adapt and adjust. Expect the offensive game plan to be a little more open this week, and we'll see how the Paladins fare against this mock defense, which, by the way, has a couple of really, really talented defensive ends who like to get upfield, who like to make plays. So those are a couple of guys that will definitely have to be accounted for. When you take a look at the standings, we mentioned this is a winner-take-all as far as the autobid is concerned. The Paladins would find themselves at 6-0, and nobody else, if Furman wins this game, nobody else would have fewer than fewer than 2 losses. So you'd have Chattanooga, who would be 6-2, and then Mercer coming in, they're 4-2. You see there Western Carolina is 3-2 in the league. And so the Paladins would win a share of the conference championship. They wouldn't win it outright until they got at least one more win in their last 2 games, and of course would love to continue to run the table. From a Chattanooga standpoint, a win, they would finish at 7-1 and would have a head-to-head tiebreaker against Furman, which would get them the auto bid out of the SoCon and guarantee pretty much the SoCon will be at minimum a 2-bid league, because Furman would still make the playoffs and could possibly and probably still be a top 8 national seed if they won their last 2 games and finish 7-1 in the league and 9-2 overall, with their only other loss, of course, coming to South Carolina. Just looking ahead, the playoff scenario for the league is going to come down to Furman, Chattanooga, and Western Carolina. I don't believe right now that Mercer is going to factor in. I could be wrong, depending on what happens over the course of the last couple of weeks of the season. But if the Catamounts are able to get things righted, they've lost 2 in a row now, but if they can get things righted and win out, they're still hanging around in the national rankings, or at least on the periphery a little bit. Maybe they get in after all is said and done. It's been interesting for their season because the last couple of years under Kerwin Bell, they've started slow and finished fast. This year, they started off incredibly fast, and now here down the stretch, they have lost 2 games in a row. Anyway, that's what's on the line as far as the conference standings are concerned. From a scheduling standpoint, outside of Furman and Chattanooga, you've got VMI at ETSU. That's a 1 o'clock kick. Mercer will be at the Citadel at 2 p.m., and Western Carolina will be at Wofford. You've got the Citadel and Wofford both still not only looking for their first conference wins of the season, but looking for their first wins of the season overall. So that's a look at the conference schedule for this week, and all eyes, I believe, are going to be on Finley Stadium in Chattanooga when Furman and Chat meet up. It's going to be fun. Hope that you can make it and have a good road presence from a fan standpoint. But if you can't, it's on ESPN Plus. Invite you to watch it. Turn the sound down. Listen to us. You can sync up the broadcast. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. Facebook Live, our booth cam, gives you, I think, the closest to the actual time of the game. Or what I mean from that standpoint, the delay on Facebook is quite a bit less than it is on the Odyssey app. But over the air, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 in Spartanburg, and online at odyssey.com. But you can check out our booth cam on the Furman Paladin football Facebook page and my personal Facebook page as well. All kinds of different ways. If you can't make it, we'd love to have you as part of the broadcast. It's a 1:30 kick, so that means that our Pepsi countdown to kickoff will begin at noon from Finley Stadium in Chattanooga on Saturday. It should be a fun one, and again, the Paladins trying to complete this gauntlet of a portion of their schedule that we said would define the season. So far, so good, and we'll see if they can run this stretch of these three huge games on the road in a span of 4 weeks. We find out beginning at 1:30 in Chattanooga on Saturday. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with you from Finley Stadium at noon, as I said, for the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff. If you can't make it, we hope to have you on the broadcast. For all of us with the broadcast team in Furman, I'm Dan Scott. As always, saying God bless you and so long, everybody.